please continue enjoying your lunch. I'll get started with the wonderful Jonathan Alter. It's so good to see you.
Great to see you, Carol.
We go way back.
Yes, we do. Carol was my wife's, one of her mentors when she was at CBS News.
Goodness. That makes me really
feel
feel
ago.
old.
I shouldn't say how long ago. She works for the Colbert Report.
Yeah,
now.
I was just going to say, and his wife Emily is one of the real icons of TV talk show producing. She's worked in all the coolest places, and she's wonderful. So say hello. But do you remember how we met? Because I remember.
No.
I was a source. In a strange way, I was a source. I believe your beat was media.
Media, that's right, for
And
close to 10 years.
And it was when Tish was buying CBS.
Yeah, that was one of my big stories.
And this was a big story, and I somehow became a source for you because I was all the time I'm outing myself. But no, I think it was with their blessing. These things never happen by accident. I was spending a lot of time in the bureau chief's office here in Washington. I was a producer for Charlie Rose then, and you were up in New York, and this story was breaking. And you and I were on the phone. At one point, I was on the phone with you in the bureau chief's office, and they were, as these things often go, they were waiting to find out what you knew. And you were waiting to find out what we knew.
Well, that was one of my my favorite stories. It was my first real
It was a cover.
Scoop. It was a cover, and then I have in my office a full-page ad from the New York Times that Newsweek took out after the cover story appeared. The cover was a broken CBS eye. It said Civil War at CBS.
Yeah.
And it was mentioned on like 12 occasions at the climactic board meeting of CBS Inc., where they threw out the old CEO and basically turned over the company to Lawrence Tish, who then didn't quite do what they hoped with it. But I did get a call from Katharine Graham saying that she had received a call from William Paley, where Paley said to her, "Thank you for helping save my company," because he had hated old management, and he had worked with Tish, and then we had penetrated the board of directors and gotten all sorts of inside stuff. Another guy and myself.
Who was
Wolfenson was one of the members of the board.
He was somebody I was talking to also. I was talking to him and then talking. It was one of
those.
But
what was interesting, about it was I was a kid, and so this was.
Weren't we all?
I was in my mid-20s, and this was like big time corporate shenanigans, and I was. So it was very memorable for me.
It was a seismic story. I mean, it had an effect we still feel, don't you think? I mean, everything started to change then.
Yeah, well, it was a period when the old
sort of family-run networks
was starting to break apart.
Yeah.
And also the other thing that was very memorable about it was, remember, and this is recounted in some book that was written about it, is I just woken up, or in fact, I think the phone woke me up, and I was still in my underwear. It was Bill Moyers on the phone shortly before deadline. He was working for CBS, and he gave me a blistering interview about how CBS News standards had gone completely downhill, and they were running stories on three-legged sheep, and it was all about entertainment values, and they had sold out the idea of real news. And of course, I was just scribbling as fast as I could and put it all right into Newsweek, and so it was somebody from inside who was raising these issues that we all now are very, very comfortable with. How far have entertainment values intruded into news values? But at that time, it was a newer subject in the mid-1980s.
I'm curious what you think, looking back. What was more seismic? Was it what what CBS started with the ownership of the networks all flipping to a different dimension, or Ted Turner starting CNN?
Well, Ted Turner started CNN in 1980, and I think that was probably more seismic, in terms of setting off a
fundamental
change. Realignment. But I think a lot of old authority structures collapsed in the 1980s, and you could draw some links between the demise of communism and the way things changed in corporate America, where the old, I don't get ulcers, I give ulcers, CEO. First of all, ulcers aren't caused by stress, we now know, but that whole model of management and authority in America broke down, and the internet then, of course, dramatically
Really changed
accelerated that. So television was just one of many institutions that were fragmenting, and where the whole authority structure was breaking down. But it used to be that ABC, NBC, and CBS, particularly NBC and CBS, just as you all remember, they ran everything, and there really wasn't anything else.
I've always been amazed that CBS didn't start a cable channel, because that really seems to me to be the modern place. That's where news dominates now, is in cable more than in the commercial networks.
It was a terrible mistake. They had been the Tiffany of networks. They had been the dominant player in news, and now they're they're well behind, and they have been for years, and they don't really show any.
And you're under contract with
NBC,
with
yeah.
NBC.
So I need to disclose that while I'm trashing CBS.
No. But that was I mean, I don't know. I think it's debatable, the relative success of MSNBC. But having MSNBC and having CNBC were smart moves for NBC.
Oh, very much. And also MSNBC.com is very successful. So it's true that MSNBC has not been as successful as some had hoped. I was on the air the first week with Brian Williams in 1996, and at that time we had bigger hopes for it. But it still makes money for the company, and it allows them to amortize really a lot of their other costs, because they can repurpose material that was originally done for the network.
What cable did is it adapted to us, the way we changed as consumers of news. I mean, the internet now has taken that to an even larger step. But,
and it's everything is constantly in flux, and change is the only constant. But I think in general it's been good. At the time in the '80s when we were wringing our hands, Bill Moyers was issuing these jeremiads about how everything was going to hell in the news business. We didn't realize that the model would change. So now, if you're not getting what you feel like you need to be an informed citizen, I don't mean to be harsh about it, but it's your own fault. Because the information is there. I mean, you can read the Guardian. If you feel the American press is no good, then you can read a take from the British press, or you can sample from the local press. You can time shift so that you can, if you happen to miss it. And I've really noticed it with voters. One thing that I do every 4 years, I go out and I knock on doors, because at some point polls.
You went to California.
This year
right?
I went to California.
Well,
you did do your research, didn't you?
Can we blame you for the weather?
I was out there for my niece's bat mitzvah.
Well, there you go. Multitasking.
But I do it sometimes in Illinois, and I was very interested. I was covering the California primary. I'm very interested in how, particularly middle and lower middle class voters would react, whether they would stick with Hillary Clinton. And so, but I always find out something interesting when I go and spend a few hours knocking on doors. I remember in 1992 when I did it, I found that in Niles, Illinois, all these people were very interested in, very concerned about their prescription drug costs. That wasn't even on the radar scope in Washington. I mean, and now, then we got a prescription drug benefit a couple of years ago. So you do find things out. And one thing that I noticed, I found out a number of things, and this I didn't even put in the piece, but struck me. Several people said, well, I'm not sure who I'm going to vote for yet because I haven't done my research. And it used to be you'd hear voters say that, and what that meant is that they hadn't happened upon an article in the local paper before they put it in the cat litter that had some information about the issues, right? And so because there was so little attention to the issues and where the candidates actually stood, every 4 years for 6 different election cycles, I made it my business to have Newsweek do a big, expensive pull-out graphic, like we call it a gatefold, that would tell you, here's where they are on the issues. Because we thought people should make an informed choice. Didn't do that this year. Didn't want to do it. Didn't think there was any need to do it. Because if you want to know where they stand on the issues, you can go to their websites. And yes, there are still a few people who don't.
And a myriad of other websites.
And a lot of other websites. And so we need to do other things with Newsweek than to reprint their position papers of where they stand on the issue.